Oh my God, this fucking coach is phenomenal, Ron. Motherfucker's phenomenal. Itoudis, like the first day of practice, I'm like, oh, I'm running a wall for this guy. Absolute European legendary coach, which makes it even harder.
As some of you know, Patrick Beverley has been playing in Israel this season, but some of you might have missed the news that he's been suspended by his own team. This happened after a public fallout with his coach Dimitris Itoudis, and a suspension evolved into him parting ways with the team. So, what happened? Let's unpack how Pat Bev is learning that Europe's not the NBA, and especially when it comes to coach's authority. After he first landed at Hapoel this season, most fans in Europe and Israel were excited. Beverley was known back in the NBA for being that scrappy perimeter defender who never backs down. Throwing in such a name and personality into a Eurocup team was definitely an exciting thought. Plus, Hapoel Tel Aviv was already trying to make waves by signing big names with EuroLeague and NBA experience. And so Pat Bev gave them instant credibility as well as extra intrigue about this team and how he'll perform in Europe. Beverley right away admitted that he enjoys the freedom and the trust from the team. He got to play plenty of minutes, run the offense, and do what he does best: hustle, harass opposing guards, and talk some trash. And for a bit, it was going just right. A 36-year-old veteran reviving his energy on a roster full of talent in a country that welcomed his passion. He even looked happy, averaging double figures in points, a handful of assists, and rebounds. It just seemed like they were the favorites to win the Eurocup and that Patrick Beverley is gonna be the main star in there. But in sports, and especially with characters like Beverley, these relationships can turn sour fast. Recently, Beverley started the game for Hapoel and played about 9 minutes. And then he just vanished from the rotation. After the game, reporters pressed coach Dimitris Itoudis on why Pat Bev never returned on the floor. The coach's response was as blunt as it gets: because I'm the coach. That's it, no detailed explanation, no sugarcoating. A one-liner that told everybody that Itoudis was calling the shots, and if he felt like benching Beverley, he just would. And of course, in classic Pat Bev style, he fired back on social media with laughing emojis, basically saying he thought the whole thing was a joke. The next day, Hapoel announced a suspension until further notice. No beating around the bush, they basically said either you show respect to the coach or you're not going to be playing. And just like that, the guy who'd been a star in the Eurocup suddenly found himself from the outside looking in. If you're not familiar with European basketball, you might be wondering, who is this Dimitris Itoudis? Let's put it this way, Itoudis has one of the most impressive career resumes in Europe. He won multiple EuroLeague titles both as an assistant coach and a head coach, most recently coached Fenerbahce in the EuroLeague, and has a reputation for being quite a demanding coach. He believes in discipline, structured offense, and accountability. If a player isn't on board, no matter how big their name is, he has no problem cutting their minutes or sending them to the bench indefinitely. I feel like Americans would probably compare him to Greg Popovich. A coach who commands respect, expects professionalism, and doesn't hesitate to clash with big personalities if that's what it takes. So from Itoudis' perspective, if a veteran player publicly mocks him, that's crossing the line. We can just look at the conflict that he had with EuroLeague's all-time top scorer Mike James in 2021.
But you know who I am, most probably, yeah? You know what I represent, what are my principles, my ethics, my work attitude.
They fell out over a situation where Mike James had a loss of a family member, but the coach expected him to play and also attend practices, so from there, drama ensued.
My grandpa just died. I'm not trying to have a big conversation. I'm just like, all right, bet. He come in, say some kind of iffy stuff that I didn't really like, and I just exploded. I'm like, yeah. Walk out. And then at the end, I was like, and I'm not coming back to practice tomorrow either because my funeral is tomorrow and I'm gonna watch that shit online. And just walked out. Came in there, watched the funeral online, they suspend me.
Speaking of discipline, my grooming routine used to be all over the place until I tried Manscaped. Their Beard and Balls bundle is a lifesaver. For example, I use my beard hedger to shape up my beard. It's got 20 length settings so I don't have some random plastic guards laying down everywhere. Then there's the Lawnmower 5 Ultra, which has interchangeable foil and trimmer blades for below the waist, plus an LED spotlight so I don't accidentally carve shapes that I don't intend. Both of these devices are waterproof, which means that I can do a quick cleanup in the shower or in the sink after I'm done with my trimming. This travel lock is also a game changer because it keeps me from scaring the TSA, and the skin safe technology, I must say, it helps reduce those dreaded grooming accidents. Now, if you want a routine as disciplined as Coach Itoudis expects from his players, hit manscaped.com and use our code BASKETNEWS for 20% off plus free shipping. Now let's get back to the video. Yeah, these suspensions coming from a team that's coached by Itoudis is definitely not a first. And that's the big difference between coaches in the NBA and European leagues. Byron Scott, a former NBA coach, recently said, "As a coach in the NBA now, you have no authority whatsoever." He was talking about how star players often dictate what happens in a franchise. Roster moves, coaching hires, you name it. There's a reason that the NBA is often called a players' league and that there's such nicknames as Le GM. And even lesser stars a lot of the time get away with challenging their coaches' decisions publicly. But in Europe, the balance of power definitely shifts towards the coaches, or you could even say the team's needs. Yes, there are some exceptions, like if a team signs a massive superstar with an enormous salary. But even then, the general culture is that the coach calls the shots, and if you undermine them, you pay the price. Tactically also, the game is more coach-centric. They decide lineups, set rigid systems, and if you don't fit in, then you might get benched or even cut, no matter your name recognition. Personally, I think that the authority that coaches have in Europe often actually hurts the league, especially when it comes to coaches being in charge of the players' media availability in terms of both who can talk and when they can talk, which of course stunts the growth of popularity as these players are less accessible to the fans through the media. So I imagine someone like Pat Bev, who has his own podcast and speaks freely on it, definitely might create some extra tension between the coach and him. That's why I'm sure he had a bit of a cultural shock coming from the NBA when it comes to coaching. But he's also had a lot of distractions. He even considered leaving Israel at one point because of family pressures. His fiancée is from Iran, and of course with all this regional tension in those parts of the world right now, it made life complicated. There was also drama around one of his teammates, Jonathan Motley, who tried to exit the club by citing safety concerns, but eventually stayed. Add a quad injury that sidelined him for 6 weeks, then you had the rumors about EuroLeague offers, a big coaching change mid-season, and the typical ups and downs that come with living abroad for the first year. So this relationship between Beverley and his team seemed like it was under a lot of stress. And it's not just about the suspension, to be honest. This all points to a wider conversation about how foreigners adapt or fail to adapt to European basketball. Some American players thrive here because they embrace the structure, respect the coach's authority, and love the tactical focus. Others find it too restrictive. They're used to the NBA, where star power matters a lot more and coaches might not bench you after a single mistake or sign you off the active roster just because of a social media post.
What are you able to give yourself credit for in managing this season and this playoff run?
Staying out of the way.
For Pat Bev, who has a very strong character and is never shy about his opinions, it seems like a collision was bound to happen eventually. And when neither side was willing to back down, we got a situation where Hapoel said goodbye to one of their star players right before the EuroCup playoffs. But by far, the thing that backfired the most in this story was Beverley's statements on other players exiting Israel. He said it's effed up that players are using the war situation to leave after signing such contracts. And when Beverley was the one leaving, one of the players Pat referenced, Jordan Lloyd, tweeted this: "Bro had so much to say about me and mine though. This is why you don't speak on other people's situations." So what's next for Pat Bev now? Maybe he looks for a different team in Europe or even returns stateside if there's an NBA team waiting. But let me know what you think about these differences in the NBA and the EuroLeague and Beverley's suspension. Which of the approaches do you prefer and who should actually hold the power? Also, make sure to check out our second channel outside the NBA where we discuss NBA topics. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.